So welcome everyone to Thursday Night Conversations. I am Tyrell Moyd, your host for this evening. Thursday Night Conversation is the virtual Bible study of Kingdom Covenant Ministries, where our shepherd is Bishop A. Bernard Hector. Thank you all for joining us tonight. So for those who've been with us over the last 3 weeks now, we in the week number 4. Wow. Over 4 weeks, we have been in our consecration series, talking about the keys to the kingdom. We are using the text from the devotional guide written by our very own Dr. Dorella Pulley, and you can catch something from the keys to the kingdom 7 days a week on the Kotek family Facebook page. So if you've not joined the Kotek family Facebook group, please do so, so that you can be caught up on what's happening with the keys to the kingdom. So this week, our focus is on the wise and foolish and sheep and goats. Our self-care strategy for the week is exercise. And again, y'all know I always do this. I get in, I start talking, and I don't pray. I got to put a big sign in front of me to say, pray, boy, pray. Would you bow your heads for a brief moment? Dear God, we're thankful and grateful for this, yet another day that we can come, we can gather to be with one another. Lord God, we ask that you would continue to speak in us and through us, even as we share what you've given us for this evening. Bless the hearers, bless the doers of this word. Dear God, we find favor. May you continue to find favor in our lives from the service that we do, some of the service that we give and produce. This is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. So thank you again for being here. So from the keys to the kingdom, again, we are on week 4. We are halfway through the consecration. And this week, we are talking about the kingdom keys of wise and foolish and sheeps and goats. But the kingdom, the self-care strategy for this week is exercise. So for those who are both in the Zoom room and on Facebook, what did you do as a way of exercise this week? But I know y'all didn't have this as an assignment above and beyond your normal.
I just started my normal, Elder Tyrell. So let's start there. So I have my workout clothes now. So every day since Monday or Sunday, 30 minutes on the treadmill, and I try to get a couple planks in.
All right, 30 minutes on the treadmill. I have a desire for a treadmill, or do I want to get a Stairmaster, something in the home, but anybody else, anything that you've done, you're doing now? Maybe you just started this week for exercise, getting our bodies moving. They said bodily exercise profited little, but we'll take that little. Sister Kiana, go ahead.
So at work, I pretty much sit all day. So I've been getting up more and walking around a bit, building a little bit more, and just trying to do more walking because I literally do sit all day.
I resemble that. I sit a lot. So one of the things that I've been doing is attempting to take the dog out for longer walks. And specifically as we're coming back up the Alameda, I make sure we're coming up that hill, and that's not a time where he can stop and graze, but we got to keep walking for that last half mile, or I don't know how far it is, but a quarter of a mile, that I'm getting a little pump in there, going all uphill. So hopefully, we talked about resting last week. You're still doing that. You're still, and these we should be building on. So I don't want, next week, I can stop resting. I'll have to pay attention to my rest, and I can stop exercising, but using these strategies to care for ourselves, not just through consecration, but beyond. So it has been blessing me, and I hope that it is blessing you. So for tonight, We again are going to be talking about the kingdom keys, first of the wise and foolish, and then sheep and goats. So if you all have been following along, and if you don't have the book, make sure you get it. From the book this week, our reading for the week, so not just the scriptures at the top of the devotional, but the reading for this week actually came from Matthew 25, 1 through 13. We're going to go through 1 through 10, talk about that specifically tonight. But as we look at both of these keys, I want to look at them from the perspective of our kingdom service. So, we've begun this consecration process. And, hopefully at the beginning of consecration, you've been in prayer and thinking about what you want from God. Overall, when God has given us that vision for our life, those dreams we dream, it is for our kingdom service at the end of the day. So although the visions may be varied in difference, you'll hear me refer to our kingdom service as as it relates to your vision. So my kingdom service really is serving the recovery community. That is, that's the vision that God has given me, the work that I'm doing. But it's all kingdom service. So whether it is in the pulpit, in your secular jobs, wherever, what is your kingdom service? And how does that fit your vision and your purpose for your life? Because it should be one and the same. So first, let's look at the wise and the foolish. First, Matthew 25, 1 through 4. At that time, the kingdom of heaven, and this is Jesus speaking, the kingdom of heaven will be like 10 young bridesmaids who took their lamps and went out to meet the groom. Now, 5 of them were wise and the other 5 were foolish. The foolish ones took their lamps, but didn't bring oil for them. They didn't bring extra oil for the lamp. But the wise ones took their lamps and also brought containers of oil. And as we are talking about wise and foolish, and the bridesmaids or virgins in some translations, here when we talk or we think about the 10 virgins, they were preparing for something. So as God has given you vision, as God has given you purpose and you know that, how are you preparing for your vision? And think about that. I want you all to let that memory, because I want to get some feedback. How are you preparing for your vision? So I know for myself, one of the things when I started my organization, 3C Recovery, when they tell you you're starting your business, what's your vision statement? What's your mission statement? What's your vision statement? And I began to sort of write a whole bunch of stuff down. And to this day, I'm still tweaking, because for me, words matter. So the vision is still the vision. How I speak about the vision is shifting a little bit, though, but the vision is still the vision. But for me, it was important to write. So one of the things I'm doing to prepare for that vision, it was important for me to write. I have a very specific prayer that I say every Monday. I have a prayer group. We meet every morning. It started off with just me and Reverend Bale. It's growing a little bit. But with me and my prayer partners, every Monday, I say this same prayer relative to my vision. And in each of the areas, like one area I'm talking about the service, one area I'm talking about money because it takes finances. One area of this prayer, I'm talking about the people who work with me. And in order to prepare, again, for the vision, for this great vision that God has given me, I've now started taking one of those focus areas of the prayers, broken down to about 4 or 5 different sections. And I am making an intention in each week. So if I'm going to pray that, I was just one of the things that just came into manifestation for me was a administrative support person, administrative assistant. I call it my administrative manager, because a lot of, honestly, I just needed to be managed in some ways. So as I began to pray for that, the prayer didn't, for me, the effectual and fervent prayer of the righteous availeth much. If it was going to avail much, then I had to put some action to it. So I wasn't just praying for an administrative assistant, but I started writing down, so what would that look like? What do I want this person to do? What skills do I want this person to have? So I was really preparing then so that when the person showed up, then I'm ready. Not that, well, let me just interview all these people and sort of then pick from this one, this one, and this one. But I put a plan together to prepare for the vision, because it's coming to pass, I'm telling you all. So what are some of the visions? What are some of your preparations? Anything that you've done to prepare for the vision? Anybody like to share? I know it's just a couple of y'all tonight.
I can say something.
Yes.
What I do to prepare is I try to pay attention to what signals and clues that God would like really bring to my attention. And then I kind of pray about it and see what it is that I might hear from his response and think about whether or not that's for me to do or not. Like if that's in my best interest or if I think that God will want me to do that.
Okay, so really listening and hearing the voice of God as it relates to that purpose and plan. Yes. And I saw you, Elder, when we teach in recovery, we talk about 3 areas of service: active listening, asking good questions, and knowing and managing our stuff. But it starts with that listening. That's why we start in the silence, that stillness, so that I can hear clearly what God is saying. Elder Katrina.
Yes, well, this is not my comment, so I'm unmuting. Oh, I'm sorry, this is for, okay.
So one of the ways I prepare is by writing it and then praying about what I've written. And then if I feel like I've gotten some clarity, or at least no opposition, then I try to plan it out into smaller incremental steps, because things can seem too large to accomplish if I take on too much at one time. So I write it and then I pray about it and then I break it down into steps.
Absolutely. Yes. Great planning strategies. Awesome. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I have one more who wants to share. Oh, okay. Yes. They can see you through the blur. Go ahead.
We can see you. Hey,
My thing is I prepare for what is happening, so I know what I'm supposed to be doing and how to do it. So before I do it, I know what I'm supposed to do instead of stepping up and doing it, because if I step up and do it, I might get it wrong, and my vision that I see might be wrong, and then I doubt myself on what's happening.
Preparation is key. Yes. All right, for being a wise bridesmaid. Yes. Sister Kiana.
I'm actually going to read Minister Tam's comment.
Okay.
She said that she takes the time to meditate on the vision, then aligns the process of completing it by writing it down. Then she outlines the vision from the beginning to what the end should be, and then makes her moves.
Mm-hmm. All right.
And for myself, I also am a person who I write it down because I get a lot of thoughts at one time. So sometimes I speak and I ramble, and sometimes I ramble in my writing as well. So I write it down and then I come back to it and see what he brings to my attention first, or brings more clarity to it, and then make the moves after that.
Yeah. So one of the things, as you said, that it brought back to my remembers again when I first started 3C training, and I started writing out again what I wanted it to look like. I used that same initial plan, and that I just keep adding to that one. For me, because it shows some changes over since 2018 over the last few years. But I keep all of that stuff in there because it becomes that reminder. So I like seeing it all in one place. So yes, so for our kingdom vision, if we're going to be wise, we have to plan, we have to prepare. Where there's no vision, the people perish. When Naomi was speaking, that was one of the things, because I can start doing something. I'm not prepared for it. I didn't have that vision for it. I didn't write it out. I didn't plan it out. And then I hit, because I promise you, through everything, you're going to have some type of struggle and opposition. That's just, the life that we live in. So if we're then not prepared for that, one of the things that we talk about, again, in recovery is for individuals to know their stressors and know their triggers, because it's going to happen. And we need to plan, because I can, plan to do, all of this. Well, what am I going to do when this shows up? COVID shifted a lot of our plans. And it's funny because literally like months before, probably in 2019, I had just sort of come across Zoom, and we weren't doing a lot of online trainings. But at that point, I want to say they gave you the full hour for free. And so I had just started getting myself familiar with the platform, not knowing, it was going to then be this mainstream platform. Because when I looked it up, I didn't know anything about it. I don't even remember how I came across it, but it actually prepared me. I didn't know I was being prepared, but that's the great thing about God, y'all. It prepared me when I didn't even know I needed that preparation. God just does some, great things in our lives like that. It is an honor to be a king's kid, a part of this kingdom. So the first thing that we want to highlight there in that verse 1-4 is really preparation. Preparation and preparing, like Naomi said, even for the unknown. It helps us in our successful manifestation of that vision. So the scripture then goes on to say in verse 5 and 6, when the groom was late in coming, they all became drowsy and went to sleep. But at midnight, there was a cry, look, the groom, come out to meet him. So the next thing that I want to highlight here is that the bride, the groom was late. I'm going to keep switching back and forth to my King James language. So the bridegroom was late. The bridegroom tarried. There are going to be things according to that plan that we have that's not going to happen when we think it's going to happen. As I was, again, preparing for the business, I saw, this by the time we get here, we'll be doing this and this will be, and one of the, when I stepped out, so I used to be the director of the Baltimore Recovery Corps, so I'm just going to go ahead and say this. In the organization that was our grantors at the time when I was working for BRC, said that they would continue the grant, although the grant had ended where I was, that they would continue the grant. So a part of my preparation was that, once they get that grant ready, I'm gonna apply for that grant. Again, I planned not only that I was gonna apply for it, that I was gonna get it. And I really had a lot of eggs in that basket. But somehow conversations went on, and instead of having it as a grant-funded project outside of that organization, they decided that they were going to do it in-house. And if I wanted, then I could be a contractor for them. But that wasn't the vision. That wasn't what God had given me. So it wasn't, things just wasn't happening sort of in the time frame that I thought that they would happen. But as we see here, the bridegroom was late and they all became drowsy and they went to sleep. So last week we talked about resting. So although that promise, that vision, I can promise you it won't be denied, but there are times when it becomes delayed. And what we have to do in that delay is rest in that promise, rest in the word, rest in what God has already spoken in our lives. So everybody, they said the wise, it was 10 of the bridesmaids, 5 of them was wise, 5 of them foolish. Everybody gets tired. So it really doesn't matter the difference between me and the other. We're both going to get tired. We're both going to, have some struggle, have some setbacks. The difference is the wise, the 5 that were wise, we know even in the resting, they was prepared. So when the time comes, so when the grant opportunities did present themselves, then I was ready for it. So I could rest because I had done the preparation. I didn't have to, and I know, that some dreams do give us some sleepless nights, some visions, we're up all night, but I could rest in the fact that I had prepared. So even in, as you talked about your preparation, because preparing and writing it down is just one step in that preparation, the following through, putting some actions to that is really then is what's going to move us forward. And once we prepare, then we can rest. Oh yeah, this may have come up, that may have happened, but I can still rest in the word that I am going to manifest what God says he has given me because I've done my part. I already know that God is going to do God's part. Am I doing what my assignment is? Am I doing my part? And some of us, we rest when we haven't done the assignment yet. My mom, one of her favorite things when she calls and checks on me is, boy, are you getting enough sleep? Boy, are you getting enough rest? And there are times when, yes, my body may be tired, but I haven't completed the assignment yet. Yes, I may, but I still haven't completed. So I had to complete the assignment, because if I go to sleep and my assignment is not done, then guess what? I'm still not going to rest. I'm going to get sleep and not rest. And there's a difference. Sometimes, everybody's sleeping, everybody's slumbering, but not everybody is resting. Those of us who are prepared, those of us who are doing our part, we can rest in those laws. We can rest in those downtimes. We can rest even when it's not showing up, because we know that we have done the work. We know that we have prepared. We are wise kingdom citizens. Any thoughts, questions there before I move on to the next? Anything about resting and preparing for that rest?
Elder Ty, wow. So last week I jokingly said that they took away our coffee, so we had no other choice other than to get rest, because I was resting in meetings. I was resting and I said that, being funny, but really what I think I did is I rested because my body wasn't consumed with caffeine. And so, because Sister Kiana, Minister-elect Kiana, black coffee, no sugar, no cream. And it's a constant, part of my day, because, I needed to keep going. And so to be without it, it reminded me of what it felt like to just really rest. And I have learned that even this week, with the continuation of it, I am sleeping better because of it. And so praise the Lord for that. That was my 2 cents on the caffeine.
Oh my goodness, sis. So as you were speaking, I wrote, what are we putting into ourselves that's robbing us of our rest? What is it that we are putting in ourselves that is robbing us of our rest? I'm gonna develop that later. Thank you for that. Awesome. Anybody else? So we need to be able to speak peace to our atmosphere, get that rest in there, and do what we need to do. Even in that scripture where they were on their way over to the other side and Jesus was found sleeping, resting on the pillow, and he had to speak peace. The reason that he needed that rest is because he understood that there was a Simon on the other side of that, on the other side of the lake. So get us over to the other side, rest up now, because there's more work to do. So let's talk about the next section here, which is verses 7 through 10 from Matthew's 25. Then all those bridesmaids got up and prepared their lamps. But the foolish bridesmaids said to the wise ones, give us some of your oil, because our lamps have gone out. But the wise bridesmaids replied, no, because if we share with you, there won't be enough for our lamps and yours. We have a better idea. You go to those who sell oil and buy some for yourselves. But while they were gone to buy oil, the groom came. Those who were ready went with him into the wedding. Then the door was shut. If you all, I think it was earlier this week, it may have been on Kingdom Conversation, or it may have been when I read it, where Bishop Pulley talked, about, us, being able to say no. We need to understand as we are preparing for that vision that God has given us, and we're preparing for the service that we are called to, that we have to take some time for some self-care. So rest is a part of the self-care, but there are 8 dimensions of wellness. So we need to have some self-care around our finances. We need to have some self-care around our emotional health. We need to have some self-care around our intellectual health. What are you doing to stimulate your brain, your environmental wellness? So they are not just one dimension. So I rest, and that took care of my physical. And even sometimes that doesn't take care of the physical. That's why we have to rest and we have to exercise, because we have to, often do more than just one thing in each given area. But there's a saying that says self-care isn't selfish. You cannot pour from an empty cup. So the wisdom of the bridesmaids who had extra oil, and one of the things that I love about kingdom citizens, I love the term more than enough. They in their preparations, not just enough to in the lamp right now to get us from point A to point B, but it talks about them having a container of oil so that they would have extra and they would have more than enough. But they knew even from that place, if I give you out of my cup, then I might run out. So how do we make sure that we are practicing that self-care? I was sharing with Sean earlier this week that I've been, as your own boss, sometimes some checks from organizations don't hit like they're supposed to hit. And I had been waiting on this check from January, from a training that I had done. But one person called me and asked, hey, can I borrow such and such? Yes, I went on and said yes. Next, something else happened, and the next one was my mama. So y'all know that was yes. But I gave, and then something else, happened, and I got down, and actually today I got another request, and after having said yes, I was thinking about I'm preparing now to deliver this word to you all tonight, and I'm not practicing what I am preparing for you, what I'm sharing with you. So for me, I had to take a step back. And I promise y'all, I love my family, because this is family. It wouldn't need no friend. This is family. But I had to say no. I'm like, I had to keep in reserve what I have, because I still got bills. Now, I know the check is going to come, but it hasn't hit yet. So now had I had, I could do. So sometimes we are giving and we are sharing, and what we don't recognize that it is taking away from the vision and the purpose that God has already placed in my life. Because if I give this to you now, what I need to use this for, the seed I need to be using this for to sow into, and sometimes it's I want to get a new car. So the seed that I'm sowing into is paying my bills on time, so that my credit score is, looking like I wanted it to look. So yeah, you got it, I got it. But what is my vision? My vision, long term, my vision, not just today. So yeah, so I had to say no, because I had to think about, how is this going to take away from what God has purposed in my life? Because there's no need of me praying about a new car. There's no need of me praying about a new house, and I don't do what's necessary on my end to get that house. There's no need for you to praying for that vision if you're not going to allow yourself to keep what you have, to sow into your own vision and guard those things from sometimes those who would sort of choke us out. Last week we talked about the weed growing, and it's choking out. Excuse me, the weed growing and choking out the wheat. So we have to be careful in our sharing. Be strategic. I think that's the best word. Be strategic. If this doesn't fit right now into the vision and what God has given me, I may have to say no, because God has this to take me someplace. And if I give it to you, then how am I going to get there? And think even about your gifts. If you deplete yourself giving your gift, I love our minister of music, but you know what? Those who are going to call her, she can't sing for free. She can't deplete that gift. Not completely, not all the time. I love during convocation last year when Bishop did the kingdom advocacy. How can we support one another? And as we are supporting one another, if I'm going to support my brother in media, I need to pay him. If I'm going to support the work that you're going to do, I need to pay you. And I need to pay you a fair and decent wage. So yeah, sometimes I might need a discount. Help me out when I need one. But when I can, we need to sow and support one another to that degree, so they're not just giving everything away. It's not selfish when their rates go up, because their gas done just went up, everything else just went up. So yes, if you need to raise your rates, raise your rates. Do what's necessary to take care of yourself. And as Bishop, and this was on Kingdom Conversation on Monday, as he was talking about us, being wise, as we do the comparison of the foolish and the wise, he mentioned that we can go from that foolish to the wise. And he gave us these three things. First, we have to be aware, and I'm just stealing now. Then we have to accept, and then we have to take action. So I have to be aware that it didn't make sense, and for me to give that money when at the first off, I really didn't have it, to give. So I had to be aware of that. And then I had to accept the fact that the person that asked might get mad at me. I have to accept that fact. I have to accept the fact that my bank account is what my bank account is right now. I had to accept that fact. So we have to be aware, accept, and then take some actions. So now what am I doing? Because if I do want to be able to give everybody, and I do, how am I going to now raise my income so that when the ask comes, it's now in that overflow and not coming from my cup? So how are you? How are you preparing for that wisdom, preparing for moving from that a foolish state, whatever? And we all got some foolish state about something. How are we moving from that place to the wisdom? And we do that through our awareness, acceptance, and our action. If you didn't see Monday's conversation, go back and check it out. I can tell you it's something good for you. So then this week, well, yes, first, I didn't do that. Any questions about wise and foolish? Any questions, thoughts, comments? Yes.
I wanted to share a comment because I have been guilty of wanting to give to others, regardless of whether I really had it or not. And, because I'll always find it. I can always make it up in my mind. And so I started something probably about 6 years ago called the Let Me Hold It. I have a Let Me Hold It fund. And I have X amount of dollars in there. And if you want something, yep, I can let you hold it if it's in the Let Me Hold It fund. But once that fund is depleted, I don't have anything else to offer because I have to be aware of what's in my cup so that I don't take from. I'm not eating oodles and noodles for 2 weeks because I want to make sure your lights are on or whatever the situation is.
And you eating steak.
Right, and you eating steak and shrimp. Well, we're in Maryland now. Y'all eating crab cakes while I'm over here eating the oodles and noodles. And so spiritually, what I was hearing ringing in my head is that we often, our focus has to shift from wanting to please people to wanting to please God and please ourselves. Mm-hmm. It's absolutely a paradigm shift that we have to take on and then begin to believe it. And then once we have, because I do believe that many of us will be able to provide and supply for the kingdom of the kingdom here. I do believe that, but in the meantime, we have to utilize the example of the wise women to have our oil and then have more than enough so that we are able to show that as an example and then others can get in line. Because I read into the story. I'm not going to use the word because I may use it wrong and I don't want to get called into a class. I read into the text further. That's right, Bishop Hector. And further in the story, I said, well, I bet once they got their oil and realized they lost their broom, that the next time it was a call going forth, that they had their oil and they had more than enough. That's what I added to the story.
Yeah. Did they learn the lesson in it?
Exactly.
And just as you were sharing that, when you talked about wanting to please people, so I know one of my acceptances is that I had accepted why I wanted to please them. And it had to do with my pride. I want to be the one that people come to, oh yeah, and I asked you, and he never had to say no. That's pride. That's for me. And I don't know what's yours, different people have different stimuli, but for me, it was around that pride. And I had to accept that, you know what? I might have to say no. Thank you. Awesome. So our second kingdom key for this evening, and still in keeping with that, that overall kingdom vision of service, we talk about the sheep and goats. So I'll read it first. So when Jesus saw the multitudes, he was moved with compassion for them because they was weary and scattered like sheep without a shepherd. So Bishop Pulley, again on Monday, talked about the thing that separated sheep and goats were the service. So, how we serve, will we, I think he used the metaphor, will we give, are we willing to give? So the sheep and the goat are here, but our role, I want to look at it from the perspective of our role as the shepherd. So, and I'm gonna pull from his reading on the next slide, so you'll see what I'm talking about. But in that, in today's reading, Bishop talks about that as a shepherd, if we're a good shepherd, we're gonna have sheep, we're gonna have, he said lambs, sheep, wolves, and goats. Yeah, he named 4. So not so much do I want to talk about the sheep and the goats in the sense of, their characteristics, but really, what is the characteristic of the shepherd? So let's first look at Jesus saw the multitudes. As I was reading this, I was saying, well, really, Jesus saw the multitude. And I took off the S, because the S is not necessary, is what I was thinking, because a multitude is that big number, it's a multitude. So, but as I look closer and I looked at different versions, almost every version of this scripture that I saw had an S on the ends of multitudes. And I'm like, well, multitude in itself is already plural. It's a multitude. It's already, but he wasn't just talking about the multitude, the crowd over here. He wasn't just talking about the crowd over here, but the truth is Jesus was moved with compassion for the crowds, for all of the different people, for all of the different kinds, for all of the different things that trouble individuals out there. So I know that we cannot always take up every issue, my issue is recovery and wellness, and somebody else's issue is mental health, and somebody else issues, but Jesus recognized that there were multitudes of trauma, that there's just trauma everywhere. It's not just trauma on your block. It's not just something happening in your neighborhood, but there are multitudes of issues. So as shepherds, I really don't have to worry about, so growing up, I grew up in church, we would talk about pastors or preachers or spiritual leaders losing saints. So I really don't have to worry about losing saints. Bishop, you don't have to worry about losing members, because there are multitudes out there. The issue has become is that I don't know what multitude I am supposed to be called to, I'm called to serve. So I'm trying to get these over here, and I'm trying to speak to these over here, and I'm trying to speak to these. There are multitudes. So that's why there's multitudes of us. That's why we are all a part of this body, because you might, from your way of having that vision, and it's all one kingdom vision, but the role that you play in bringing about kingdom in your life might look a little different than mine. So you can go and serve that population. You connect to those women and children who've done without. Maybe your population is, helping battered women. Maybe your population is helping the veterans. Maybe your population is helping the LGBTQ community. There are multitudes of trauma and issues out there that, and I know in Baltimore we have them, that we could have a church on every corner, and each one of them can be filled to capacity, because there are just multitudes of issues, of situations, of things happening out here that we need to be moved with compassion with. So Jesus saw that he saw the multitudes, and he was moved with compassion for them because they were weary and scattered. like sheep. So we have to, again, start to bring these individuals in. So you've heard me talk about recovery. And one of the things that I say that the opposite of addiction is not sobriety. The opposite of addiction is connection. What Jesus was able to do was connect with all of those people, with those multitudes. He was able to connect with them and bring them in. If we are able to connect, if we are able to see people with those eyes of empathy, understand their points of view, then we will be then more moved with compassion than sometimes just passing somebody on the road. You know, I teach a couple of cohorts of individuals. And, you know, there seems to be that individual in the class who, you know, just not paying as close attention, you know, just sort of, they late every time. And there are times for me, I'm gonna talk about Tyrell, there's times for me where I wanna give that person less attention. That is the person that might need more. There's times when that person go to ask me something because they was late and I know I already said it, I say it a little sharper because you should have been here. But instead of, there's that lesson in blessing. Instead of me blessing them, I wanna teach you a lesson in this moment. And it might not be my job in that moment, but how do I serve everybody? How do I serve all of them, no matter if they sheep, no matter if they goats? You know, what am I called to do in that? Mother Dorothy, yes.
Okay, what you were saying just now, how do I serve them all? My thought on that is, like from what I just wrote, you are helping and serving them all, because as we network, like I just said, each one teach one, each one help one. So if you help me with something, then what they say, pay it forward. I help somebody else. So, but it's originating from you. So you helping everybody.
Mm-hmm. But, and one of the things I tried to do, taken from that, is within the cohort, create other leaders. Because leaders, real leaders create leaders rather than creating followers. So that we do, I be like Jesus, y'all, with my 12. So we can have that nucleus so that I am not being depleted. But when I say serve them all, I know that they, at the end of the day, all of that particular group is my responsibility. So I know I can't serve them all because of their, you know, in somebody else's class, somebody else's cohort, that's their responsibility. But those who are mine, I still have a responsibility for. I'm called to serving those 12, those 15. And then how do I teach them, like Mother Dot said, then to serve others so that we are paying it forward. Thank you. Anybody else? So Bishop Pulley, oh, yep, 752. Bishop Pulley wrote, this is directly from the book, and this is on today's devotional, the very last paragraph. Lambs are sheep that are less than 1 year old. Jesus told Peter to feed his lambs and to feed his sheep. As good shepherds, and we all are good shepherds. That's why I have it underlined, because sometimes we think, well, you know, I'm not a spiritual leader. I don't have a title. You know, but we all are good shepherds. But as good shepherds, the I Am empowers us to nurture new converts with love and care. That the I Am, excuse me, empowers us to feed the sheep with the principles and practices that will enable them to live holistically healthy, balanced, and well-rounded lives. So as I mentioned, first is that we all are shepherds. So we all have a calling. We all have, God has given something, a purpose, something in all of our lives to do. So with that particular call to shepherd, that call to lead, that is where our kingdom service comes in. So my responsibility is, how am I going to serve the sheep and the goat that I am called to? How am I going to serve those who I say, I have a vision. I think about Habakkuk when it said, write the vision and make it plain. What we sometimes miss is that Habakkuk had been bothered by what was happening around him. He was frustrated about his surroundings, those things. He was moved with compassion at seeing those things that were happening around him. And the Lord then tells him to write the vision and to make it plain, so that those who read it, they can run with it. So we can then produce. What we have to recognize is, with that vision, that there is still work for us to do, versus then just having that vision. Because we, as shepherds, have a responsibility. And I want to do just a quick flashback, because God gave me a download after last week when we were talking about sowing and reaping. So as God has given us the vision, and I look at the vision as the seed, that, we're going to go and we're going to plant these seeds into those we're serving. One of the things with that sowing and reaping, even before we start sowing, we have to recognize our responsibility for the seed. So if I have to properly make sure I am handling the seed, I need to properly make sure I'm handling the vision. I have to properly make sure I am nourishing the seed. I have to properly make sure I am developing that seed, because what I have to recognize is that if I want that seed to be right, if I want what that seed will produce to be right, then I'm going to have to meditate on the word day and night. If I want that seed to be right, then I'm going to have to pray without ceasing. If I want the seed of that vision, if I want that to be right, then I have to guard my mind, because I actually understand that life flows from it. So the words then that I speak to both these sheep and to these goats, it has to be done with care. I have to feed them in a particular way, so that it nourishes them. So I have to take care of the initial seed, so that the vision really can manifest like I want it to manifest. When I was studying, and I wanted to look just at sheep and goats, my plan was to go in a total different direction. So I wanted to look up what is the difference between the sheep and the goat. And I'm not going to read it all, but two things that I want to highlight. It was just 2 lines. And one of it says, sheep are intelligent, obedient animals. Goats are intelligent, curious animals. So I was looking for stubborn, because y'all done told me my whole life that goats were stubborn. Yeah, the goats, but the truth is, through the study now, this was the USDA, somebody, so if they right, if one of the government sites, if they right, then they say that the sheep, the goats are actually intelligent, but the truth is they're curious. It says goats have the reputation of being stubborn and misbehave, but if you understand their behavior, it can be easier for you to then manage those behaviors. So I thought about my wonderful dog, and that obedient, he's intelligent and obedient, sometimes he's wise, and then he's sometimes like that goat. So what I tend to do is, when he has to go to the restroom, he will let me know. He starts to circle right next to me, bark, and I start to get irritated. So I go to let him out. And what I do is I just open the door and then I let him out. But because he has some of that goat nature, he's curious, he's gonna go out there and instead of using the bathroom, he's gonna go smell what's over here. He got to go, and do what's over here. So then I come back 10 minutes later to let him back in. He's never used the bathroom. I learned now, if I then, when I go with him to the door and I say, Pot, gotta teach him something, Pot, then he will go to the bathroom. So when we think about those sheep and the goat, he's obedient if I do my part as the shepherd and take him out there. He's gonna be curious. So, and then I look at it, so why he ain't do what he was supposed to do? He's so stubborn, he won't do what he's supposed to do. But I have to look at it from my perspective as the shepherd, and what do I need to put in place so that he will listen? What do I have to do so that he will follow this instructions? So I have to do my part in order for him to then show up as that sheep, that the sheep nature, the sheep characteristics that I want him to produce. I have to do some work if I am going to produce and shift from that sort of goat, that curiosity. I'm gonna get lost. And that when we think about saints, that's the same thing. It's I'm gonna go out here, I wanna find this, find that, I'm a little dabble in this, a little dabble in that. But as the shepherd, how do I bring them back in? What is God's vision for you in your service in the kingdom? And I'm hoping you are able to apply some of the wisdom from the foolish and the wise, and some of the wisdom from the sheep and the goat in order to bring about that vision that God has for your life. We're not in consecration just for nothing. I hope you're not in consecration just for nothing. I hope you don't go through these 40 days having not eaten and don't come out with more spiritual power, more spiritual empowerment. I hope that throughout this journey, if you don't know your vision, you're seeking God's face for that vision. And God, how am I supposed to serve? What is my service in the kingdom to the kingdom? And what is your service in me and through me? God bless you. Any questions, comments? Almost a couple minutes over. Awesome. So as we close out tonight, I thank you all for being here, for meeting us here on Thursday Night Conversations. For those who are able, please feel be so compelled to sow a seed. This is a good place to sow seed. As we talk about sowing seeds, I promise you this is good ground to sow some seed. The Cash App is on the screen. We're grateful and blessed because of the gifts that continue to flow in. And we remind everyone that throughout this week, throughout every week during the consecration, there are awesome opportunities for us to continue to, as I said, to nourish those seeds. You have an opportunity, that thing that's already been planted in you. God is faithful and just, he will perform it, but you have to do your part. So I encourage you to show up for these opportunities so that those seeds, those visions, those dreams that God has placed inside of you can be nourished, they can be developed. This is a great a way of receiving that. And I also remind individuals who are locally with us here in the Maryland area to join us on Sundays at our Central Sanctuary at 2119 Gwen Oak Avenue here in Baltimore, Maryland. And for those who are a little bit away, you can join us on Sundays on our Zoom. We are always excited and blessed to have you all join us and be with us in our worship experience. So thank you so much for your time tonight. Elda, are you available to close us out in prayer tonight? I know she got the babies and stuff behind us and the animals. Oh, that's fine. We'll get you another night. Yes. Do anybody want to close us out? I don't want to. Any desires? Okay. So would you just bow your heads, dear God? We are grateful and thankful again for another Thursday night conversation, dear God, where we are able to come together, learn and grow together. We're so grateful and blessed for Kotak, for KCM, KCMN, dear God, for the blessing that you have placed in our lives with such great leaders. We do not count it. We don't want to lose sight of the gifts that you have placed among us, dear God. So we celebrate the leadership that you have placed in our lives, dear God. And as we do our best to take in this word so that we could rightly divide this word of truth to those that we share with, that we could be the shepherds, we could be the mentors, that we could be the lights for somebody else who may not know you, who may not have that same relationship, but we want to be that example. Ever shine through us, dear God. This is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you so much for your time tonight, and we'll see you here next week on Thursday Night Conversations. Good night.
Good night.